Hey, this is Joey Henderson, and I wanted to do a short, probably about 5 minute video here on a suction line accumulator. This is a device that's inside of heat pumps that's very critical and it can be very problematic if you don't understand what's going on inside. So, without further ado, let's talk about what they do and how do they work. All right. So a accumulator is by definition suction line accumulator, right? So it is in the suction line of the compressor. Now it is located in between the reversing valve and the inlet of the compressor itself. And they can be tall like this one here in the back, as you can see, or they could be a little bit shorter and fatter. But the purpose of a suction line accumulator is to protect the compressor from liquid flood back, especially during defrost, and also for excess charge that's being held during the heating mode. And these are often can be a underlying symptom of repeated failed compressors. So when they're in action, what they do is they will actually hold that liquid refrigerant and only boil off to bring back gas. So they're located in the suction line near the compressor. They prevent it from getting flood or slugging back to the compressor, and it also holds that excess charge. So let me get past here. Okay, here we go. So it's usually a black container, by the way, and it's made of steel. And there's an inlet and an outlet. Now, if you notice right here, this is this short little piece of pipe right here. That is the inlet, okay? And this is the outlet. Now, if you cut open a real accumulator, this is drawn for exaggeration, but really this pipe comes real close to the top, and it's a bit further up than the inlet here. But this is a good illustration. So notice we have an inlet section, and then we have this big U-tube, and this is the out. So suction line comes in. This is the common suction line from the reversing valve. And then this goes back to the compressor. This down here is a little siphon hole, which is extremely important and what you really want to be aware of. So what we're going to show is here comes the vapor coming back in the common suction. And as you can see in this drawing, we've got some liquid refrigerant coming back down in there with it. And it's going to start filling up in the bottom of this accumulator. Now, it would have to fill all the way up to the top in order to get liquid back to the compressor. So as you can see, it's already a great protection against the compressor. So as that refrigerant boils off, then it just comes up and then gets sucked right back in that tubing. Good to go, no problem. And it goes back to the compressor. Because remember, the only thing we want back to a compressor is gas. Now, here's the other dynamic that a lot of technicians don't realize is that the oil, okay, that's traveling with the refrigerant also comes into the accumulator. But what it does is it starts to lay down at the bottom. And what happens is that this siphon tube right here will pick up that oil as that refrigerant whips down through this tube. So as you can see, the refrigerant comes around, and when it takes that turn, it's going to pick up the oil. And the oil is going to travel back to the compressor. Now, there is a little screen right here that catches any debris that may be traveling with the refrigerant. You know, like that, I don't know, carbon that's inside the refrigerant due to the fact that somebody didn't run nitrogen through the system while they were brazing. So here it comes back, made its way through the system. Yes, the filter dryer should catch it, except, of course, all the braze joints that are after the filter dryer, those go through the system, and they will sometimes come back and land in this accumulator. Now, what we want to happen is we want all that oil to slowly get entrained back to the compressor. As you can see right here, see it's being picked up. But here's two things that can happen that can be a problem. Is that if we get a burned out compressor and it's a really bad acid burn, then the carbon from that burned out compressor can travel back. And I understand it doesn't always just burn out immediately. It could be going bad. It could be getting acid buildup in there. So this is a slow degradation of a compressor. And this will get carbon down here, and that burnt oil will plug up the screen that's right there in that pickup hole. And when it plugs up that screen, no more oil travels back with the compressor. And what will happen is that this accumulator will slowly fill up with oil. No oil will go back to the new compressor that was put in to replace the burned out compressor. And what will happen is you will lose the next compressor. And usually it'll go out on all three legs. And you'll be looking for an electrical fault when the whole problem is that we're losing lubrication and the windings are getting up against the casing of the compressor and shorting out to ground. Had a job where a guy lost a compressor in a package unit. He did everything right. He put a new compressor in. He put liquid line filter dryers in there, vacuumed it down, weighed it in, thought he did a good job. And boom, I think it was like 3 days or 4 days later, lost the next compressor. I got called out on the third compressor failure. By this time, he'd done started using suction line accumulators, which he should have done to begin with. So he had a suction line accumulator, a liquid line dryer, a suction line filter dryer, a liquid line filter dryer, and he vacuumed it down, weighed in the charge. And again, this is like compressor number 3, and it burned out. So we said, stop the badness. And what we did is we went and we got the accumulator out of the system, pulled the accumulator loose, tipped it over, and we poured out almost a full McDonald's cup, 16 or 20 something ounce full of oil, and it was burnt. So what was happening is that this accumulator had gotten clogged, and it was capturing all the oil from all those new compressors he was putting in there, okay? Whenever you get a bad burnout, a good practice is to cut loose the suction line accumulator and tip it over. If you pour out more than, say, a few tablespoons or maybe an eighth of a cup of oil, but you pour out a lot more oil than that, then you've got a plugged up accumulator, and you should change it with a burned out compressor, or you could lose the next one. And that is my 5-minute tip about an accumulator. If you got a burned out compressor, change it out, or at least check it. If it's got no oil trapped in it, you can put it back in. But if not, get a new accumulator. Hope that helps you. You guys have a good night, and I'll see you again later.